Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Business of Education. As these podcasts continue to grow, I get to talk to more and more interesting people, all from my network that are doing great things. This week, our guest is a friend of mine by the name of Mark Plitzuweit. He's the president, CEO, and superintendent of a charter school district called EdKey that is located in Arizona. They've got kind of scattered all over the Phoenix area. Mark spent the last 30 years in education, started off as a kindergarten school teacher, growing into what is now the CEO of an amazing charter school that focuses on all kinds of different needs, focused on how they can grow within those individual communities. I think when you tune in and listen on this episode, you're going to find great things about how charter schools are a little bit different, how they can service different needs, and how they can really impact your communities. And if anything else, it's just going to be a good listen to see another perspective on how education can change. Hey everyone, my name's Kyle Wallgren. This is another episode of the Business of Education, where I get to talk to my friends and people that inspire me in the education field. Today is actually somebody that I met early on in my journey in EdSoma, in education. We got to share a stage in Las Vegas, and we became friends, and Mark's become a big advocate for what we're doing. Our guest is Mark Plitzuweit. He is the CEO of a charter school group called EdKey, which is located in Arizona. Not only is he the CEO, he's also the superintendent, playing many roles within that nonprofit organization that provides educational services to over 11,000 students in the state of Arizona. Mark, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, Kyle. Been a big fan of yours since the day we met in Vegas.
I appreciate it. I often tell people that, if the most free press we get out of any one person is from you and your organization. So we're really grateful for the kind words that you say about what we're doing and being a believer in what we're doing. So thank you so much. Mark, I kind of want to start with your journey into education. You started off as a kindergarten teacher, first hands outside of the parents, touching, making an impact on our children's lives, kindergarten. Why'd you start there? Tell us how you got into education.
My journey in education really started because I was not a good student. I did just enough as I was growing up in my academics to stay eligible just to play sports. I was bored. Didn't really fit the mold of the traditional student, where you had to sit in the straight rows with the teacher behind the lectern, just talking at us. I was more of a hands-on kind of student, and that just wasn't available back then. And so when I got out of my undergrad program, I started focusing in on students with special needs. And so some of the most challenging students with special needs. I'm a large figure, and so getting in and working with students with behavior issues. I had kindergarten students that were emotionally disabled, private placement students. So they were all special education, all special needs. And I wanted to make sure that their journey, because they were already considered not normal, if you will, in an education environment, I wanted to make sure that their journey was as beneficial to them as possible. And so I started implementing things as that kindergarten teacher early on with those kids. And that program pulled me out of the classroom pretty quickly, within a year, and said, listen, we need whatever you're doing, we need that to happen school-wide. And so that's really how my journey just kind of took off in ed leadership. And I just don't want students to have the same experience I did. I want it to be better.
That kind of, I didn't know that, but that kind of just opened up my eyes to a lot of your approach. You look at EdKey as a charter school, not to jump on a totally different topic, but you've built the model around, I just noticed, around what you just said. Like, talk about the EdKey business model, because you guys are all over the place.
in a good way, all over the place in a good way, right? Yeah.
In a good way, yes. In a very good way. You service a lot of underserviced areas.
Yeah, we do. We really do. I believe, sorry, when it comes to the models that EdKey provides, We're more of a support organization. A lot of public districts and other public charters are really a top-down model where they have the one model and this is what they push into the communities. We reverse that a little bit and we say, we go into the communities, we ask the parents and we ask the stakeholders, politicians in those areas, hey, what type of school programs are missing in your community that we can offer? Because we are so eclectic and unique with our offerings, we can go in and we can build just about any type of educational model in a community that the community wants. And by doing that, the community has buy-in. Our
Right.
schools will never be massive. They won't be massive because they are niche type schools. We have the school in Central Phoenix that is 80% homeless population. I have a school in Mesa that's for the deaf and hard of hearing. I have a school down in Nogales, which is all ELL, English language learner students. There's 400 of them, 100 yards from the Mexico border. We have, fine arts. We have high-end basketball programs and sports programs. We have founding fathers principles, going back to constitutional. Every class has something constitutional built into it. So it's really what the communities need. And by doing it that way, like I said, the parents and the community really buy into the school. And so we don't see turnover in teachers. We don't see turnover in students. We don't see a lot of issues when it comes to parent complaints. We still get them, of course. I mean, that will never go away. But
Right.
it's very minimal across the organization just because the parents are the ones that help build the schools.
That's super interesting because I come into education from a different perspective. But what you're saying, I think, is super important and maybe overlooked from a lot of parents. We look at, from our technology standpoint, getting teacher buy-in, but part of what we market to the schools is teacher buy-in, supporting parent buy-in for them, supporting what they're doing, right?
Right.
Can you maybe touch on how important it is for parents to play a role from an education standpoint instead of just sending their kids to school and hoping that they get all the information they need before they come home? You mind talking on that?
Yeah.
I think you probably know a lot about it.
Yeah. Parent involvement is massive. If you don't have parent involvement, the students themselves aren't engaged. They just aren't. I mean, what's the first thing when a child comes home from school and a parent says, "What'd you learn in school today?" Nothing. Well, everyone knows
First
that's
thing my
not
kid
true.
says.
Yeah, right. But everybody knows that that's just not true. I mean, no matter whether you learn good lessons or bad
Right.
lessons, you learned something that day. And with our parents and their communication, open pipelines with all of our teachers, there's that back and forth. I mean, there's daily communication if needed, if a student is struggling with something. We try to make sure that students don't fall through the cracks. A student could be getting like a failing grade in a class. Well, we want to get out in front of that. We want to have the parents, having those conversations with the teacher, with leadership at the campuses. And sometimes I'll get involved in those conversations because I myself, as a parent, understand that as well. So when I look at our schools, I look at them from the parent lens. Would I send my kid to this school? When I walk in the front door, did you greet me the right way? Did you
Mm.
stand up? Did you just sit there and buzz a door, or whatever that looks like? Is the principal, very very energetic? Are they there to have a conversation and have your child's best interest at heart? One of the things that we like to pride ourselves on is across our organization, we like to focus on where every student is known, and that's known for what their abilities are in the classroom, and we meet them there. And that's what helps with the parent engagement piece, because the parents have a say in that. If they see something at home, if there's homework, I don't believe in the homework model. I believe in more of the flipped classroom. Get the stuff done with the teacher at school, so that way if there's an issue, because there are parents out there that don't know algebra, there are parents out there that
Right.
aren't very strong in the English language. So let's get the stuff done at school, and then let them have their parent child time at home in the evenings, so that we know that they're learning what they need to learn, according to what the state standards kind of dictate for us.
I appreciate that. I just feel like, as a whole, you kind of touched on some things like that I learned from my grandfather early on in my life that I really still hold myself to. Like when you shake somebody's hand, stand up and look them in the eyes. You know what I mean? These are like important characteristics that seem to be like a dying trade. But, you still do notice those things when you walk into a school or a business or whatever that looks like. How does somebody present themselves to you, and how can that reflect in molding and shaping, students into becoming, important members of society in the future? Respect's a dying breed, so to be able to have that surrounding all your kids is so important. So I'm glad you guys focus on that. You touched on so many different areas that you guys focus on, all community driven. Um, it sounds like you guys focus a lot on equity and inclusion. What are some of the things that you do to really drive that home in your schools? Because you guys are dealing with all different types of people, and
Oh,
opportunities to teach.
yeah. When it comes to like equity and inclusion, um, again, it's really based on the leadership at those schools and what their connections are and contacts are within the community. We really, we really see a lot of, students that aren't successful in other schools or in other educational institutions that show up at our door. We have some
Right.
very, very high performing schools here in Arizona. We have some of the highest performing schools in the entire nation here. But if you look at their numbers, what happens is those charter operators, their numbers fall off around seventh, eighth grade because the curriculum gets so hard and so difficult for those students that they just can't meet the standards that the school has. But I will tell you, every one of those students, once they leave those super high performing schools, they come in and make all of our schools better.
Right.
They bring everything up. They bring all that. So we don't close the door on anyone. If we're the chosen school, we're going to do the best we can to make sure that your needs are met, your family's needs are met. And you know what? And if not, we also understand we're not the fit for everyone. And so we have
Right.
those conversations as well. I mean, we'll never close the door and shut the door on someone unless we have wait lists, which a couple of our schools do have wait lists, and there's nothing I can do there just because we don't have space. But
Right.
but for the most part, anybody and everybody is welcome, including staff. Come check us out. Get that autonomy that we give. That local control, but that these schools are afforded, and it's a whole different world of education, and it's a business. You just touched on the respect and the shaking the hands and eye contact, all those types of things. That's customer service. That's customer service 101. And so if we can
Right.
emanate that, our staff can emanate that, and then hand that down to all the students so that they see it. So then all of a sudden we've got these students that are on like student council and stuff coming up, shaking our hands, introducing themselves, having that eye contact. Who's teaching that in schools? Not many places, but we pride ourselves on having that
No, it's
available
kind of
for them.
becoming a dying trade.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of misconception around charter private schools. We'll focus on charter schools compared to public schools. What are some things that you think would help people understand where charters really fill that gap between private, or sorry, between public and charter schools?
So here in Arizona, all charters are public. So we're considered public schools anyways. All we do is we
Okay.
just fit a need. Yeah, we just fit a need for programs that don't exist within the public districts. That's how I focus our mission on, is let's make sure that if there's a STEM type school that maybe is at capacity, let's put another one there because there's a wait list. So there's families that want that STEAM or that STEM education. Fine arts, performing arts. Those are things that are actually being ripped out of schools because funding or whatever, like wood shop, for example, the trade type
Hmm.
programs.
I
They've
loved
all
woodshop.
but they've all gotten ripped out of schools because the academic benefit, according to newer leaders, and I'm going to say that, I'm saying that in the nicest possible way, newer leaders, people that don't have that vision, that how important
Totally
was wood
understand.
shop or print or, all those different trade tech, how important were those when we were growing up? I loved wood shop. I was never good at it, but I loved it because it was with my hands. It
So
was
did I.
something I could
That was
do
probably
outside.
my favorite class.
Right, right. And so, but those courses are don't exist in schools anymore. And fine arts, same thing. They'll get rid of theater, they'll get rid of music, they'll get rid of drama. I'll embrace it. I'll offer that at our schools because I know the academic benefit. Working right brain, left brain activity. It's so important to the whole well-rounded student.
That's so interesting that you said that. And I was not aware that they were moving these classes out of schools, but you would think it would be the opposite. A lot of the complaints that I hear is like our kids are in school too long, it's too rigid, too structured. But then you see, taking those, I'm going to call them like break classes, that taking that out, it kind of seems contradictive to what, people are identifying the problems are.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you said that. I wasn't aware of that at all. Um, at
Well, let me
all.
put some let me
Uh,
put some context on that. I can put a little more context on that.
for
The
sure.
the lack of academic benefit in those classes that is being mentioned is because you don't state test on them.
Mm,
They're not part of the state testing metrics. So you got to focus on math, reading, science, and history. Those are the big ones when it comes to what students are actually tested on. And then sometimes there's funding that's attached to that testing. So spend more time doing those things and not as much time or any time at all on things that are outside of that scope. And so I believe, again, like I said, I believe it's completely the opposite, where we need to have all of those things available to stimulate the brain on both sides and help students understand that there's more to school than just pen and paper, pencil and paper and testing. There's got to be more to it. And like I said early on, I wasn't a good student, and if I wouldn't have had shop classes and stuff like that, I don't know what I would have done. But yeah, it's all because of the testing and the money.
that's that was probably the only part that gave me confidence in school was, I could do math. You know what I mean? Math was probably something that I was good at. I'm a horrible reader. That's why I have Ed Soma today, is because of a personal need and wanting to make sure that my kids didn't fall through the cracks during COVID. But shop, you know, wood shop, mechanics, that was where I excelled. Doing things with my hands was where I excelled. And I'm not here to say that I did it the right way, but I didn't get through high school, but I wasn't limited to my success. I was just a different type of learner. I needed to learn with my hands. And one of the things in Canada that they had, I don't know if they still had it, but it was called RAP program, Registered Apprenticeship Program. And kids like me that struggled with, the academic side of school were able to go and learn a trade and use that for credits to graduation. And I took my millwright course, and I learned how to rebuild an engine. And there's still lessons in that today that I implement into my life on a daily basis. But if without those programs, I wouldn't have even got as far as I did in school. So I'm just so surprised that they're removing that. But that's interesting to know. Uh, One of the things that you've been a big advocate for us, and like I said earlier, you've really helped bring attention to it, is our reading platform, which is an AI reading platform. How do you feel like AI is going to play a role in the upcoming years in education? How do you see it helping? What are some of the things that you see it not helping?
Well, I think it's going to help all around. I believe that the AI technology, as it continues to advance and improve, it's going to help all around except in one area, and that is students' critical thought, because it's going to do it for them. If we can control that piece of it, all the other educational components. I mean, we've got these mini computers in our hands all the time. Where
All the
people are
time?
on their phones. You look everywhere. People are just on their phones. Well, let's embrace that. Let's teach students how to properly use that for their education. How does that help you in the classroom? Have teachers give lessons on, all right, everybody pull up whatever the app is. Let's just say, pull up EdSoma, and let's go through and let's do some reading programs right now. Let's, everybody break off into little groups and do your thing. I think that's fantastic. I think, technology is not going anywhere. We just need to
No, it's
figure out how
definitely
to,
not.
yeah, we just need to figure out how to harness it a little bit, on our end, to make sure that the students still get that critical thought piece. That's going to be our challenge, because if it's being done for them already, they won't be able to solve problems. But then
Right.
again, go to math. Go to a math problem and just say, why does it matter if I can solve this algebraic equation? When am I going to use that again, unless I'm going into something in the science field? Or,
Right.
even accountants don't use algebra, and they're numbers people. So, what's the benefit of not of telling students, no, you can't use technology to help you solve that problem? But what you do, and especially in math, have them work the problems backwards. They can go on and they can find the answer, and then work that problem backwards to figure out, okay, how did it get there? And if we do that, that keeps the critical thought piece rolling, while they're using AI technology. I mean, I
Right.
think I think it's fantastic, dangerous, and and you know something that we just really need to embrace in education.
One of the things that, in the last conversation I had on AI was like how it can help give more time back to the teachers. Time is, our biggest commodity, and we don't get any more of it. So I think that, focusing on, or teaching teachers how they can leverage it to put more time back into their day is going to be important in the future, instead of like them being intimidated thinking that it's going to replace them, which it never can. Like, there's no way it can. But just providing them more time, I think, is going to be crucial. And that's part of the story that we focus on telling, is like, hey, we can give you 50 hours a year back, into your class to go focus on more important things, than figuring out these problems that technology can ultimately help you with. So we're super excited to see how it grows. What are areas that you think, we need more AI in within the classroom? If you were to pick something that AI could help you with today, what would it be?
Well, math. I think math is the biggest one. I would put, and I'm going to say this, a plug for Ed Soma here. I would put your platform up against any other reading program that's out there for sure. I mean, there's no gray area there for me. I've seen it. I've watched it grow from the infant stages, and just everything you guys have done and added to it. I mean, can it always be improved? Absolutely. And I think you guys are going to continue to do that.
For
You
sure.
guys are going to continue to build it. But math, if we could figure out a decent AI program for math, and like I said, you start with the answer and work backwards to the problem. If we can focus on the answer, it's one of what, the seven habits, right? You start with the end in mind.
Mhm.
And so if we do that, then we can work our way backwards through mathematical equations and things like that, and then students won't miss out on that critical thinking piece.
Well, I know lots of my staff or team colleagues listen to these podcasts, and I know that you just started a new rat trail for them to dive down, because they're always looking for new features that we can add to it. We focus on reading today, but we know that in the future we want to be able to scale across all verticals within the classroom and just be able to provide as much time back to the teachers as humanly possible. So that's our goal. Mark, I appreciate your time. You've always been open. You've helped me with a lot of problems, through starting this. And just to give people context, I met Mark at a conference, that he moderated, for me in Las Vegas, or not for me, for Education 2.0, a little tiny conference. When I walked into the room, I'm like, this is a waste of time. And I left there with probably one of the most important relationships, to my career to date. I like to ask everybody at the end of our conversation, how important is networking? Because I ultimately put these conversations together for people to see and be able to hear questions from thought leaders in those areas. But to you, what is networking and how important is it? And then I'm going to go into one last thing where I think it talks on networking a little bit more as well. But how important is that to you?
Well, I I think this, our relationship is probably very indicative of what networking is and can be. Even if you make those contacts and you have, maybe minimal contact with them for, X amount of time, there may be an opportunity where, hey, hold on, you know what? I was at this conference or I was networking at this place, and I remember there was this individual that was interested in this. Well, it's here now, so let me get connected with them, or let me get two other people connected. I think I've made a few introductions for you
For sure.
with some people across or around the world, but if you're not networking, you're doing it alone. And if you're doing it
100%.
alone, you're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to lose that luster for the mission that you initially had. Because we're all in this together at some point or another. We're all in it together, and what you provide for students, I can implement for students. And and then my ideas with, I understand that educate those educational pieces, and I'm saying, I just threw math out at you, geometry, all of those types of things for to add into your platform. Do that, because then all of a sudden you've got a whole educational system that is going to be available to all students across all subjects.
Right.
Science, there's another one. Take a look at science for me, would you? And let's biology. Let's go down those rabbit trails, right?
Every day I reach out to somebody that I know for somebody else on a daily basis, where I can make an introduction and hopefully provide value into that individual's life, or hopefully both individuals' lives. But I do it on a daily basis. And that's one of the reasons why I like doing these podcasts, is just because I get to learn so much, and I get to learn so much about the people that we're talking to, where I can help other people with those introductions. One of the things is that I know you're very proud of. You won it 2 years in a row, Titan 100 top business leader in Arizona. You're going for your third year in a row. Talk about that and the importance that it plays in your life, your network, and everything you're doing, because I know that it's something that you work hard and strive to do each year.
Yeah, so I'm super proud of the Titan 100, and I give all the credit for me being able to represent the organization to all the staff that I have, and having the people in the right places on the bus. Making things happen for students across the state, and being involved with legislation, and talking to those leaders. But the Phoenix Titan 100, they're in, I believe, 7 markets now across the United States. And it's not just Phoenix. It's like Philadelphia, and St. Louis, and Tampa, and Colorado, and a couple others. But it is probably one of the best networking platforms that I have been involved with. Um, the thought leaders and the quality of people that you meet through the Titan 100 program is really second to none. I mean, there are people that you would never think that you would bring in as like a thought leader. Someone who owns maybe a microbrewery is a
Mm-hmm.
is a Titan, but their business model and and what they do on their marketing platforms, all that's what makes it happen. That's what makes it work for them. And so being able to kind of tap into that a little bit, saying, hey, I think I can use some of that. They have these peer groups that I am now involved in with them. I have avoided peer groups like the plague, because I get into those rooms with people who think all the same. This is we're money driven. We've got this business. Let's how do we grow this? What are your strategies? And I'm thinking, why aren't we doing something different? Why aren't we disrupting, if for
Right.
nothing else? Why aren't we disrupting and making things better? We build a better mousetrap. How do you do that? Instead, they've always been like echo chambers. The peer groups that I'm with Phoenix Titan, or the Titan 100 group, is unbelievable. These are people who think outside the box on almost every turn, because they want to figure out, how can I get better at my craft, and how can I make society a better place. And
Love that.
it's night and day from other peer groups that I've been involved with.
No, I love that so much. And you touched on something really important, being able to think outside the box. If we're doing something the same way every day, expecting change, it's never going to happen. But once you're willing to step outside of it, take a risk at doing something different or swimming against the flow of the river, that's where real change happens. We didn't know we needed Uber until we decided we did, you know what I mean? And I can't tell you the last time I got a taxi. Actually, I probably could. It was probably in Las Vegas the week that I met you, going from the airport to the hotel, because cabs are still a thing there. But you don't know that you need something until you're willing to look at it from a different angle. Mark, I appreciate your time. I always love learning from you. You talked about your network. I think we're actually having Giovanni on the show here in the future, who's another one of your staff members who plays a critical role in your organization. But Mark, thank you so much for what you do and the impact that you live or impact that you give.
Well, I want to thank you, Kyle, and your entire team. I mean, you know how I feel about you guys. Yeah, a fantastic program. I hope more people embrace it and realize that it saves teachers time, and time is
Appreciate that.
of the essence in an educational setting. The clock and the curriculum are the two things that drive everything, and
That's true.
you don't always have all the time in the world with that clock to get all the curriculum in. You guys offer that better mousetrap for that. So I want to thank you for that and thinking outside the box. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you and your team.
Thanks, Mark. Talk soon.
All right, thanks. Bye.